Hello and welcome to another B1 cell biology video. This time we're going to look at the movement of molecules, in particular water, by the process of osmosis. Okay, so we're looking at transport in cells. There is the course content reference if you need to pause on it for looking at osmosis, and here is our definition. Okay, so osmosis is the movement of water, only ever the movement of water, from an area of high concentration of water to low concentration, and you'll always get an extra mark for saying through a partially permeable membrane. That means partially, partly. Okay, so some things can move through it, some things can't, so it's partly or partially, as we should really say, permeable. Okay, now you see I've got in bold there and underlined high concentration of water. Now this is the bit that's really difficult to get our head around, because if a solution is high in water, it is low in sugar or salt or whatever else is in it. Okay, so if it's a low sugar concentration, then it is a high water concentration. So another way of looking at this as, it will come up in a minute, I'll show you in a sec. I thought the other way of looking at it was going to come up, but we've got here our water molecules, and we can see we've got high concentration of water on the right there, going through that partially permeable membrane, viscing tubing, we've looked at that. And you can see that movement of water across. Okay, so that's really important. If you do that definition of osmosis, you must say high concentration of water to low concentration of water through a partially permeable membrane. Now, where is, here it is. So this is what I was just talking about. So concentrated solutions have a low concentration of water. So another thing we could say is that osmosis is movement from a low concentration of sugar to a high concentration of sugar, which I just find a bit confusing. I want to be talking about the water. It's the water that's moving, so therefore I want to know what the concentration of water is like in the two situations. Okay, so that's why I favour the first method that I've just shown you, but you could say that osmosis is the movement of water from a low concentration to a high concentration, and that concentration we're referring to there is the concentration of the sugar or the salt that's in the water. Okay, either way the exam board will mark you exactly the same. Both options are there. Okay, so how does water enter a root hair cell? We can see there we've got a xylem tube transporting the water and the minerals. Got some soil there, we've got root hair cell with its large surface area. So in the soil, there is no glucose. In that root hair cell, there is some glucose, okay, some sugar. So because there's some sugar in the root hair cell and there's none in the soil, there is a higher concentration of water in the soil. So therefore, water moves from the soil, where there's a high concentration of water, into the root hair cell where there is a low concentration of water. Now what that does to that root hair cell is it's increased the concentration of water, because obviously the water's moved in through that partially permeable membrane. So now this cell, the root hair cell, has a higher concentration of water, because some just moved in, than the cell next door. So this is now a more concentrated sugar solution, less concentrated water. So by osmosis, the water then jumps into the next cell, and it does the same, jumps to the next, all using that process of osmosis and the different gradients between the cells. The amount of water in each of them allows it to flow until it gets into that xylem. Okay, so high water, lower water moves in. This then becomes higher water than this one, moves in. This then becomes higher water than this one, moves in, and it's like this domino effect. Okay. So plants make glucose in the palisade cells. We keep trying to bring that word in because people forget it. Glucose is transported through the phloem. Okay, that was that process of translocation, transporting the sugar to all locations. Water is in high concentration outside of the plant in the soil, therefore moves into the root hair by osmosis. This is just explaining what I've just said. This increases the concentration of water in the cell compared to the cell next door, so the water moves on again. Okay, So let's just have a look at what happens when plants lose or gain that water. So at the moment, the water concentration is the same inside the cell and out, so it's just staying where it is. If the water concentration outside of the cell is lower, then water's going to move out of the cell, and you can see here it is shrinking. Okay, we just go with the word shrink, that's what they're looking for. You don't need to talk about it going through plasmolysis. And then if the water concentration is on the outside is higher, then water's going to move in, and we say that the cell has swelled. Okay, you can say turgid if you want, you don't really need to, it's just swelled. Okay, so we've got shrinking and swelling of the cells. Now, where this is a real problem, imagine you have eaten lots and lots of sugar and it's flowing through your blood because it's moved from the small intestine through the villi into the blood. And imagine you don't have the ability, maybe you're diabetic, to remove that sugar from the blood. Okay, you don't have the ability, the insulin, to turn it to glycogen and move it into the body cells. So we've got lots and lots of sugar in the blood, therefore we've got a low concentration of water in the blood. So what's going to happen to the cells? The water is going to come out of the cells into the blood, it's going to shrink the cells, they're not going to be able to function properly. Okay, so if we've eaten loads of sugar and we don't have the ability to get that sugar into storage as glycogen, more about that in B5, then the water will come out of the cells by osmosis and they will shrink and therefore not function properly. Okay, that's quite a difficult exam question for this topic. Okay, so here we've got those cells. I don't think we need to look at that anymore because we've talked about that already, and here you can see them again. We had a look, we tried to have a look, it's not a great practical, but looking at beetroot cells that had been in different solutions to see if we could see that process. Okay, so we've now got a bit of a game where we've got what's going to happen. So where have we got the high concentration of water compared to the lower concentration, and which way will the water go? So I've got some sugar over here. So this is a low concentration of sugar, this is pure water. So I've got a higher concentration of water here compared to here, so I'm going to go with that one. Check my answer, yes. Now I've got a high concentration of water on this side compared to this side because this has got higher sugar. Okay, so high sugar means low water, low sugar means high water. So I'm looking for this option, this option, and let's check, yep. And this time I've got the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3 and 3. I've got the same concentration, so I'm going to go for no net movement. We're in equilibrium, and let's check that. Yes, we've got that right. Okay, what have we got now? What happens to the molecules during osmosis? Let's have a quick look. So you can see that it's partially permeable. The sugar is too big to go through. It's just the water that can go through. There you go, one's gone through from high to low, and we've got several going through. Now we will get the odd one going back, but we've got, just by random chance, but we have got that movement, okay, so we can see that. Okay, here's our required practical. There is a separate required practical video of me doing the actual practical in this playlist. So take a look at that and you can see all of the different things that can go wrong or you know, kind of the pitfalls that we need to think about as we do this practical. You can see here I've taken an exam question where rather than looking at sugar, we're looking at salt concentration. So that's slightly thrown us off. We tend to look at sugar concentration when we're at school with the potatoes. We might look at salt, we might look at carrots, we might look at sweet potatoes. It could change all over the place with those kind of variables. Control variables, we've got the same amount of time in solution, the same surface area, we haven't chopped any up, and the same temperature. But again, it could be that its temperature is the is the independent variable. It could be surface area is the independent variable. We don't know where they're going to go. We know the practical, but remember that we have to apply that practical to a new situation with a new independent variable, okay? The tubes don't need to have the same start mass because we change everything to a percentage mass change, and that allows our results to be compared. We need to have results that we can fairly compare, and if they don't start off the same mass, we look at the percentage change in mass, and that allows us to compare the results. And then we dry that potato on the paper towel to remove any excess water so it doesn't affect the results. Now, some of them here have gained mass, so they've gained mass over here. That means that the water moved into the potatoes because the concentration of water was higher in the solution than the potato. Here we've got ones that lost mass. This is because the concentration of water was higher in the potato than the solution. And by doing that line of best fit, where it crosses that x-axis, it tells us the concentration of salt in the potato. So this one tells us that the concentration of salt in that potato is 2.6 because that's where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so that was a real quick rundown of that one. If you want to know more about that practical, all the ins and outs, then take a look at that separate video on osmosis. Okay, so that's taken us to the end of that video. Hope you found it useful. Movement of molecules, remember we've got diffusion, we've got osmosis, and we've got active transport. So that was osmosis for you. Hope you found that good, and have a good day. Thank you.